Classroom history can excite and inspire, or it can be a dry affair consisting of a reel of names, dates, and places. Either way, history at school concentrates on the bigger picture, the significant events that change the world and the people behind them. If you are lucky, you might catch a small glimpse of the lives of ordinary people. However, in the main, the obscure, ridiculous, unusual, or just plain strange facts and events from history are kept well out of the classroom. So to redress the balance and to show that life in the past was just as odd and random as today, here are 25 obscure historical facts your history lessons probably neglected to reveal. Ancient Rome was renowned for its accomplished generals. However, not all commanders were competent, and one of the worst was an insufferable snob called Quintus Servillus Caepio. In 105 BC, Keepio was one of 2 generals sent against Germanic tribesmen. The aristocratic Keepio despised his co-general Gnaeus Mallius Maximus because he was a novice homo or new man. He refused to share a camp with Maximus, and when he found out his co-general was negotiating with the Germans, Keepio led his half of the army into battle to spite him. The Germans destroyed the disunited Roman army and Keepio was tried for his ineptitude and expelled from Rome. However, he lived out his exile as a wealthy man. On the way into battle, Keepio had plundered the temples of Tolosa of a fortune in gold and silver. In 1952, Albert Einstein could have become president of Israel when the first president, Einstein's friend Chaim Weizmann, asked the scientist to replace him. Weizmann had been president since February 17, 1949, but by 1952, Weizmann was in frail health. Einstein, a naturalized American citizen, was a known supporter of Zionism and a believer in the importance of cooperation between Jews and Arabs. So Weizmann approached the man he regarded as the greatest Jew alive and asked him to take over the reins of the fledgling Israeli state. However, despite being deeply moved by Weizmann's offer and the assurance that being president would not interfere with his scientific work, Einstein turned the presidency down. In 1807, Napoleon Bonaparte had defeated Prussia and Russia and forced them to become France's allies against the Swedish and British. So, feeling rather pleased with himself, Napoleon decided to celebrate by inviting his leaders to join him on a rabbit hunt. Aides captured hundreds of rabbits and caged them in advance of the event. However, once released, the rabbits did not want to play. Instead of running away from the hunters, they attacked them, concentrating on Napoleon himself. The belligerent bunnies bit the dictator's legs and back while the other hunters tried to drive them off with whips. Finally, Napoleon was able to run for the safety of his carriage, the rabbits still nipping at his heels. By 1815, Napoleon's glory days were over. After his defeat at the Battle of Waterloo, the British exiled him to St. Helena, a rocky island in the South Atlantic 1,200 miles from land. Escape looked impossible. However, Tom Johnson, an Irish-born pirate, claimed that in 1820 Napoleonic sympathizers in America offered him £40,000 to rescue the former emperor. Johnson's plan was to lower a disguised Napoleon down the sheer cliffs of St. Helena in a bosun's chair before spiriting him away in one of 2 submarines. However, the rescue came to nothing, mainly because Napoleon insisted on being gloriously rescued by an army rather than skulking away like a criminal. Napoleon's first wife, Josephine, was known for her exotic pets. Kangaroos, emus and black swans are all featured in the Empress's exotic menagerie. However, her favorite was a young female orangutan named Rose. Rose was the first of her species to reach France and was presented to the Empress by General Charles de Caen, the governor of Pondicherry. Rose behaved so well that she often dined with Josephine, eating her favorite turnips impeccably with a knife and fork while wearing a white cotton chemise. Josephine so loved Rose that orangutan often slept with her and Napoleon. However, despite this cossetting, Rose did not survive well in captivity and passed away after just 5 months. The Dutch began the English Civil War as allies of the Crown. However, as the war wore on, they switched sides. So, the embittered royalists, now isolated on the Isles of Scilly off the Cornish coast, took their revenge on their former allies by raiding Dutch vessels. By 1651, the Dutch had had enough. so they sent 12 ships to the Isles to demand reparations for the pain of war. The Royalists refused. So, on March 30, 1651, the Dutch commander Cornelis Tromp declared war on the Scilly Isles, and then sailed home without firing a shot or making peace. Representatives finally signed a peace treaty on April 17, 1986, after a historian rediscovered documents detailing the long-forgotten war. In 1896, Hamad bin Thuwaini, the pro-British Sultan of the Protectorate of Zanzibar, died in suspicious circumstances. People believed that the Sultan's cousin, Khalid bin Barghash, had poisoned him, a fact made more likely when bin Barghash immediately declared himself ruler without British approval and fortified the palace. The British demanded bin Barghash stand down. When he refused, they began to assemble boats and troops in a nearby harbor. Finally, at 9 a.m. on August 26 they declared war and opened fire on the palace. Within 2 minutes, the British destroyed bin Barghash's artillery and the wooden palace began to collapse on the troops inside, while the short-lived Sultan escaped through the back door. By 9:40, the war was over after just 38 minutes. In 1929, Professor Ernest Glenn Weaver and his assistant Charles William Bray of Princeton University tested how the auditory nerve perceived sound by turning a live cat into a telephone. The pair sedated the cat and then attached a telephone wire to its exposed auditory nerve. They then connected the wire to a telephone receiver. When Bray spoke through the cat's ears, Weaver, who was with the receiver, 50 feet away in a soundproofed room, found he could hear what his partner was saying. The pair's experiments led to prestigious scientific careers. As for the cat, while it survived the first experiment, it did not survive Weaver and Bray's subsequent investigations. A Paris orphanage happened upon a unique way of fundraising in 1911 when it decided to hold a loterie de bébés. The bizarre raffle was held with full the consent of the authorities and involved the winners becoming the proud adoptive parents of an orphan baby. Reports emphasized that the best interests of the children remained paramount. The orphanage assessed the suitability of the lucky winners to be parents before handing over their prizes and split the proceeds of the raffle between several charities. It seems that all concerned saw the lottery as a sensible solution to the problem of finding homes for abandoned children. The theft of the Mona Lisa in 1911 made Leonardo da Vinci's painting famous. Few people, however, have heard of the Gantt Altarpiece, which thieves target no less than 7 times. Also known as the Adoration of the Mystic Lamb, the 12-paneled piece was painted in 1432 by Flemish artist Jan van Eyck. Anti-iconic Calvinists intent on destroying it, greedy Napoleonic soldiers, unscrupulous art dealers, and the Nazis have all made off with selections of the panels. On 6 occasions, the stolen pieces were recovered and returned to the artwork's home in St. Bavo's Cathedral, Ghent. However, in 1934, the panel depicting the righteous judges was held to ransom. The thieves never returned it.